Good morning, Mr. Griffith. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. Good morning. Are you
Good
hearing me?
morning. I am Chanel Felix, and welcome to Tobago Updates. We are excited to have you here this morning. Now, we have been following a bit about what you have been saying regarding this new merit list, and persons may wonder why would you reapply for the position, knowing the tensions that currently is between you and this current administration. Why? It has been a question mark in the space. Answer that for the people.
Sure. Tension. No, that's an understatement. Much more than tension. Um, I did it specifically to show to the country the type of flawed constitution that we have. The fact is that when I applied in 2018, I had no police experience and I acquired 82%. And this was based on qualified persons who were experts, international law enforcement experts from the United Kingdom who did the process. I acquired 82% to Ella Christopher's 52. In 2021, when we did the merit list again, I got 94.8% to Ella Christopher's 74. So I applied specifically to show how flawed our constitution is, because it meant that all that is required is that the prime minister who handpicks the president, she then handpicks persons in what is supposed to be an independent body, and they could easily manipulate a process. So I did this specifically to show two things: that the constitution is so flawed that we must change it, because you cannot continue to have a prime minister virtually handpicking the president, the chief justice, the speaker of the senate, the president of the house, the commissioner of police, the chief of defense staff, all the state board members, and indirectly all of the independent bodies. This has to stop, because that is known as democratic dictatorship. So that is why I applied to expose, because I knew fully well that the country would have known that if it is that I got 30% more than most people in 2018 without policing experience, in 2021 I got 94% more than, and 20% more than Ella Christopher and everybody else. I did this to show that now they are going to come now to say that I didn't top the merit list. So it shows that the government can manipulate an independent body. So that was the first thing. The second was to show that regardless of what, as politicians, you should do what is right for the country. So if there is somebody who ensured that there was the highest reduction in crime in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, I was able to reduce murders by over 250, every violent crime by 30%. Someone who was able to increase public trust and confidence in the police from 14 to 55%. And 89% of the country wanted him to return. And on his departure, we moved from 340 murders in his last year to over 600 murders. I wanted the country to show that this one man would disregard all of this, not care if there's blood flowing in the streets. He is not going to select who the country wants. He's not going to select who may really be the best person for the job. He is going to select based on his emotion, his anger, which goes back to Patrick Manning's words. You see a man full of hate, bitterness, anger, and gets totally out of control if he cannot have his way. This was done specifically to show to Trinidad and Tobago that your lives, your assets could never get optimum security if this man remains as the head of government in this country. That was
And
the
Mr.
reason for
Griffith,
my
you are known for your bold tactics against fighting crime and for being extremely vocal on some of the underlying issues that lead to the high number of crime that we see here in the country, Trinidad and Tobago. But you have also stood vehemently against being used as a political tool or as a political pawn, especially to this current administration. Now, with your track record, what do you think that says for the democracy? You spoke about the fact that just the prime minister himself is selecting all these positions that are supposed to be independently selected. What do you think it says for the future of democracy in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, and that is the reason why I'm going back to put in the political ring. I have to get back in government to reduce the powers of a government. That is, and governments they come and go, and they do not change the constitution because they benefit from this type of democratic dictatorship, where you as one person, as the prime minister, would, as I said, handpick every single state board member, because you have appointed the president, so the president can very well make selections based on what you tell her or him, and then it has to change. So that is the reason why I have gone back into the political ring, to put an end to this, because we cannot have this type of democratic dictatorship. That is what is happening now. And if it is that you, again, as what you spoke about me as the commissioner of police, You're not going to get everybody as a commissioner of police having the strength and the moral courage to stand firm and say, no, what you're doing is wrong, it is illegal, it is immoral, it is unethical, and it is in breach of the constitutional rights of citizens. When Keith Rowley and I had our first clash, it's because of his ignorance and not even understanding the law. He wanted me he alluded to the police going out there to arrest persons in their homes. And I stood firm because I had no intention to breach the constitutional rights of citizens. This is what happened in 2010 or 2011 when we had the state of emergency and politicians were able to influence the police, and the police arrested 500 Afro-Trinidadian boys without due process, and we paid the price. I had no intention to be a puppet to any politician. And it is the problem we have in this country where it is perceived that you as the commissioner of police, you have to report to a prime minister. If you listen to the words of this prime minister, his words have always been, I have directed, I have mandated, I have instructed, I have summoned. That is the character of the individual. He doesn't know how to serve. He knows how to direct and order. And he believes that because they have the number of votes to appoint the commissioner, that person now must worship him and listen to him. That does not work. Because if you do that, you're going to get a prime minister or a government that will tell a commissioner, I am giving you 45 million TT, and you have to use this money to only hire attorneys to arrest or to investigate political opponents. Oh, by the way, that was already done. So it shows the point. And then on the other side of the coin, when I was commissioner, I'm dealing with the AV drilling investigation, which made for disturbing reading. And then when I asked for a mere 100,000 TT to have an engineer verify what was in the report, it was refused. So it shows now that the government is now manipulating and trying to influence the police service. And that is what you call creeping dictatorship. So I had to put an end to it, and I had no intention to be the puppet to any politician. Let me just quickly add a simple example for people, because many times people are so politically caught up, they misinterpret the laws. In the United States, 23 police chiefs told the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump, during the time with Black Lives Matter and so forth, to shut up. They told the US president, shut up. You are making comments that will continue to affect the security of people in my district, in my precinct, in my city. That is what you call a developed country. In this banana republic, we are so caught up in believing that I must worship my political leader, the commissioner of police is out of place. You do not understand. You need to have an independent commissioner of police. And I was independent. And that is what this government does not want. They want to have a political tool and a puppet to be the commissioner of police. Wrong guy.
And you, in your previous statements, you admonished Ulla Christopher not to be used. Do you really think that her appointment is strategic in the government's attempt to continue to have that hold and control over the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service?
Yeah, definitely. But this is not in any way indicative of Ulla Christopher. She has done nothing wrong. And this is why I will continue to ask the public, let us not demonize the lady, because it is obvious that there's political manipulation in the process. Let me add quickly, there's a letter that actually came to the other shortlisted members. I was one of the shortlisted candidates. And they wrote to us yesterday to inform us that our application for the assessment for Commissioner of Police, we were not successful. How could you as a Police Service Commission state that it was not successful when the process is still ongoing? You know why? Because it shows that the government has immediate influence in the Police Service Commission, and there's a lot of dialogue. So the Police Service Commission, as incompetent and maybe as politically biased as they are, had the audacity, and they have now slipped by sending correspondence to candidates even before the process has ended. They didn't say that, Gary Griffith, you have placed second or third or whatever. They said you have not been successful. How will you know I'm not successful?
And this is so because it still has to go before the lower house to be debated.
Exactly. So for the Police Service Commission to have submitted this letter, it shows that there's collusion between the politicians and members of the Police Service Commission, because they are so sure that Ulla Christopher is going to be appointed. The fact is, again, I want to continue to ask Trinidad and Tobago, we need to give her full support. She has done nothing wrong. It is for her now. Her performance is going to be measured. Whether she decides to pick up the baton from myself to try to transform the police service, lift moral and motivation, build public trust and confidence, and put back in the policies that I had that ensure the highest reduction in crime, that is one choice. Does she intend to operate just like Mr. Jacob, be in some way shut down, dismantle, sideline everything, and that has caused the highest spike in crime? The ball is in her court, so we need to support her. The point, however, it shows that when you select someone who got 30% less than another candidate and then 20% less in the last two systems, it shows what has happened here. It is unfortunate, and it is hoped that she will not operate as a political tool, and she will make sure she adheres to her oath in office.
And so can we see some type of legal action coming from you upon the receipt of this letter from the Police Service Commission?
Sorry, I lost you there. What was that?
I said, can we see some type of legal action coming from you upon receiving this letter from the Police Service Commission as it being premature?
Oh, no, not at all. It is the court of public opinion is what I want. I have been there. I have done that. I have served my country for 3 years as a police service commissioner of police, and 89% of the country wanted me to return or had no issue with me returning. That 89% have now realized the manipulation by this government, that they do not care to put the best person for the job. They just want to see if they could find someone who they can control. So that same 89%, and that means obviously there are many PNM supporters who would understand that this government doesn't care about trying to ensure my safety and security. Let us see if we can find somebody now to protect me. I give the country the assurance that in 2 years or less, I will be in a position of authority to serve you and provide you with your fundamental rights of safety and security. So me taking this to court will show that if I'm trying to fight this down to be the commissioner of police, been there, done that, it is time for me to move on to other things to assist in serving the country. However, it was important to let the country know that the Police Service Commission cannot send correspondence to tell you have not been successful whilst it is still ongoing. It shows that the Police Service Commission is either totally incompetent or totally compromised by the government. And that is how it was selected. Someone cannot get 52%. Lola Christopher placed 12th out of 15 or 16 candidates in 2018. She got 52% to my 82. She got 74% to my 94. And this government and the Police Service Commission actually has the audacity to question the intelligence of this country, to believe that the country will buy into the fact that Lola Christopher just got a brainstorm and all of a sudden she decided to top the merit list. We know exactly what they want and they hope for. It is hoped that Lola Christopher stands firm, because there's legacy. There's always going to be a time when you have your last day in office, which is why I could have stood firm and I could walk anywhere in the country and have the respect of the country because I did what was right. McDonald Jacobs cannot do that. Lola Christopher needs to decide what her legacy is going to be on her, after her last day in office as Commissioner of Police.
And what are you expecting from the public? Well, what kind of reaction are you expecting, or are you asking for? What is your call to action?
The call to action in the public is to realize that this government will not make the right decisions towards your safety and security. It seems that there's a deliberate fear factor in having an independent commissioner of police, because he may very well investigate serving members of this government. There's obviously a deliberate intent by this government to try to manipulate the police service to target political opponents. So it is to let the country know, today it is me, tomorrow it could be you. Your phones could all be tapped. They could be checking all your finances. They could be doing everything in the hope that they could try to arrest you. This is dictatorship. So today it could be all of the persons who are in the UNC or the NT or whoever. But tomorrow it could be you, because they feel that you're not worshiping the PNM. This is not the type of government we want. So to the 300,000 supporters of the PNM, I am not casting aspersions on the party. It is the hierarchy of the party that have failed to deliver. They have now become a dictatorship to themselves. And you need to understand that you have family, you have assets. You need to ensure that your wife is not raped, that your daughter is not kidnapped, that your son is not killed. And this government obviously has sidelined that because of their hatred and bitterness for everyone who is not in their political party. So
Mr. Griffith, how relevant do you think is the concerns that has been put forward by the opposition in regards to Mrs. Christopher's retirement that's coming in May? Because the opposition have raised concerns about the fact that she's about to retire in May. You think this is relevant?
That is not of it's not of any great relevance, because she would be 60 in 4 months, but you can easily get a year extension by through cabinet. So that is not going to be a factor. So she is going to serve as the substantive commissioner of police for at least a year and 4 months. So that is not going to be an issue. Just like how Mr. Jacobs stayed until he was 61. And then when they realized that Jacob was not adhering to their wishes, and because of the situation of the highest spike in crime in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, they made him the fall guy. So they threw him out like a dog and then brought in Ella Christopher because he still had another 15 months. So now the government has to pay McDonald Jacobs for the contract to pay him off because they did not want him anymore. He was used and abused, and now they've brought in Ella Christopher in the hope that she will be able to toe the political line and do what is required. That because right now I actually have Mr. Jacob in court. I'll be taking him to court. He decided to have the audacity to intercept all of my phones. When you have a commissioner of police intercepting the phones of law-abiding citizens without any due process, without any evidence, it shows how dangerous we have become. This has now become a police state. It is because of the manipulation of the government who have now pushed themselves deep into the bowels of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This must end. It could only end if this government is removed from office democratically.
And I know that is a quite interesting allegation there in regards to your phones being tapped. However, before we wrap up this interview, tell us what we can look forward to in relation to your political career in Trinidad and Tobago, because you have indicated that you're done with this police commissioner battle and you are heading on to bigger, better things where the governance of the country is concerned in order to really impact the constitution. That is really the underlying issue of most of what we see as being, that you call it the democratic dictatorship.
Yeah, definitely. I have always spent most of my life serving my country. I spent 17 years serving my country as a military officer in the Defense Force, as a national security advisor, as the Minister of National Security, as the Commissioner of Police. I don't need a job. I don't need a work, which is why it is people cannot pull my strings. Because if you try to pull my strings and make me a puppet and do the wrong thing, I'm going to stand against you. That is the type of leadership this country wants. Those are the type of people that I would like around me to ensure that I do not want yes people. I want people who really want to come out and serve, really want to put the best for this country. And that is what my intention is. And there are 150,000 persons who would always be those floating voters that become the pendulum. They become the catalyst to decide who is in government or part of government. That 150,000 is who I intend to re-energize. It started in 1981, known as the ONR, with 91,000 votes. Then after we moved across in 1991 under the NAR to 127,000 votes. We then moved on in 2007 under the Congress of the People with 147,000 votes. It is obvious it is now at least 200,000. And because of that, I am asking all of you all, the people who are not PNM or UNC till they're dead, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is your right to support your political party, whether blindly or not. What I'm asking you is that this government, please understand that this government is not looking after your interests. It is undoubtedly the most incompetent government ever in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. We have a Minister of National Security who's Minister Sleepy. When I was commissioner, I had to spend 5 minutes to get my points across because he will fall asleep while I'm speaking in meetings. This is not what we want. I am asking the country rally around, not Gary Griffith, not the NTA, Trinidad and Tobago. Do what is right for the country. Blindly supporting a government because that is no longer a cult here. That is a cult. You can't just be blindly following a party that is not looking after your interests. What has happened in the selection process for the Commissioner of Police shows that this government does not care about you. They want to make sure they control, manipulate, and dictate. I am asking you now, find the right people to serve you. And may I quickly add, as it pertains to Tobago, I spend a lot of time as Security Minister and Commissioner of Police to ensure a safer Tobago. I intend to do the same. I will be liaising constantly. I intend to communicate with your relevant governance body in Tobago to continue to show the things that I did that McDonald Jacobs shut down that caused crime to escalate after my departure. I always say a safer Tobago would be a safer Trinidad. So I intend to assist as well as much as possible to ensure the safety and security of Tobago, similar to what you would have seen when I was minister in 2013 to 2015, and more recently as Commissioner of Police in 2018 to 2021. I intend to make Tobago safe again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Griffith, and thank you for choosing Tobago Updates, and it's always a pleasure to have you here.